Hi, everyone. Kumar Datatran here with Meridian Point, and today we're joined by Patricia O'Shea, a customer-obsessed technology transformation leader who spent 30 years turning the why into action. Patricia's journey started in the most unexpected place, raising funds for cancer research through telemarketing, where she discovered that connecting people to purpose is the ultimate catalyst for change. I can certainly attest to that in my experience with change transformations. From there, she's navigated through enterprise digital transformation initiatives, stood up transformation offices, and made a deliberate 5-year career pivot from leading PMOs to becoming a product management leader. Patricia brings a rare combination: the urgency of customer centricity paired with a strategic vision to simplify the complex. She's here to share how she disrupted her own career path and what it takes to help teams see technology not as an end, but as a means to make people's lives easier. So without further ado, let me bring Patricia on stage. Hi, Patricia. It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Kumar. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Of course. So in a prior conversation we had getting ready for this episode, you shared that transitioning from PMO leadership to project management took deliberate effort over 5 years. It's part of the intro that I just gave. And that's maybe some mentors doubted that you could do it. So walk us through that journey and what was the catalyst for wanting that to make that change and the pivotal moments that made it possible?
Sure. So there was a significant part of my career that was related to program management or PMOs. I was a project manager. I was a program manager. I was leading PMOs. And it was something that was serving me well. I was good at it. I had risen to a senior director level. But then I moved into a new role, working in PMOs at Cars.com. And Cars is a technology product company, building custom solutions that connect people who are buying cars to people who are selling cars. So I got exposed to what it meant to do product. And I realized that I wanted to do that, essentially. Instead of orchestrating the product work that others were doing, I wanted to do it directly. Now, I did have a challenge, though, because I had gotten to a point in my career where I really was very specialized. And when I talked to the product leaders around me, many just couldn't see it. Like, they saw that I was very good at program management, but couldn't imagine that I could do product. And I didn't have the experience either. But I sat down with our chief product officer at the time, who was great to spend his time coaching me. And basically what he helped me see was that there were many skills that I had and could achieve that were transferable. And so based on his coaching, what I did was I took a look at the types of skills that product leaders had, put that up against the skills that I had, and then recognized what I needed to develop. In addition to that, I decided to go ahead and take a product management course, just so I could get those basics and be sure that I understood exactly how it worked. So I did that. And then from there, I looked for roles that were going to develop the product skills that I didn't have yet. And those were not roles actually that had product in the title. They were, but they were adjacent. They were roles that were very strategy focused, or roles that were, in some cases, related to helping product teams be more effective. So those were the first steps. The other thing that I did, though, and I think that this is really, really important, and whenever I talk with people on my team or anyone who wants my help around career development, I talk about this. Throughout the whole time, I had my own individual development plan. And that plan was keeping track of what I was deliberately developing as far as my own skills at any given time. But what it also did was it gave me a platform to have conversations with others about what I wanted to do, how I was preparing for it, the skills that I already had, and what was sort of my ideal situation for a job. And I was using that to talk to all kinds of different product leaders. Another thing I think about development and about career is that a few things have to come together. You have to be ready, the role has to be open, and the people who are hiring have to know about you. And for the role that I'm in now, all of those things came together. And largely because I used my development plan to have a conversation with the product leader who turned out to be hiring. And then here I am. And now I am leading a product team.
It's quite amazing. So everything was really intentional for you. You really thought about it, you sort of had a plan. You created a plan through the help of the leader of product, and maybe in the company you're in now, or maybe a company you were in before, I don't know. And that doesn't really matter. As though I think what's important that you mentioned was that you had a mentor that believed in you and believed that the skills were transferable from PMO, project management, to product management and leading product teams. Can you elaborate on what some of those skills are that you felt, or maybe the mentor felt that you needed to develop, and what were maybe an example or two of what were transferable?
Yeah, so what I think was both interesting and astute is that my mentor did not tell me what skills I needed to have. What he suggested was that I go out onto LinkedIn and look at different people who have product titles and look at their background and the types of roles that they played and the skills that they had, and then start to kind of almost do an inventory against what I had. And so that gave me, it just kind of opened up my imagination, I think, and also gave me some flexibility.
Right.
And so after I did that, some of the roles that I played where I developed the skills, and this was across multiple companies, so this definitely took some time. But one was leading a center of excellence, an Agile center of excellence. And with the Agile center of excellence, I think, Agile is more about delivery. It's not necessarily about product, depending on how you're applying Agile practices.
Sure.
But what it did was it helped me look at what was almost a product itself, like Agile delivery and Agile practices, and find where in the company that I was in was that needed. Where would it solve a customer problem? So that was sort of using that product mindset in a role that was adjacent. Another example is working as a business relationship manager, which many would say is like the exact opposite of working in product with Agile ways of working. I don't really agree. But being in that role, one of my responsibilities was to work with business leaders to develop strategy. How could we use technology tools to solve business problems? So you're probably starting to hear in me some repetition in the words that I'm using and the spaces that I was playing in. That are just a couple examples of where I built some of these transferable skills.
Yeah, I love the way you put it, sort of what I'm getting anyway. And the way you put it is that being more involved in product means that you're looking at ways to solve problems. You're thinking both strategically and sort of like the Agile transformation or Agile center of excellence. As a product, what are the problems that product helps solve, and how can you take, sort of view it as a product to think more strategically about how to utilize the people and the processes that come with it, I suppose, to support the organization and their transformation goals. And I really like that. I mean, that's sort of what a product mindset is all about, right? So what's the problem to solve, and how do you think about those things in a more strategic manner? So would you say that maybe project and program management is more about the execution details that somebody else has created a strategy for? And so you when you started to look at what you needed to build in terms of your skills, it was really to zoom out a little bit, thinking about product management as more, what are the problems to solve, and how do we do that in a more strategic manner?
Yes, and I don't want to discount my program management experience. Sure. In fact, I think that was critical, because if you think about when you're working in product, you are responsible for not only working across teams and with your customers to understand what problems you're solving and how you might solve them, but you also have to deliver something. Yeah. And so having that delivery, just, I guess, skill set, I want to find a better word, but knowing what it takes to deliver technology is a huge part of product. And you can't be successful if you don't do that.
Yeah, for sure. And the company I'm supporting now is transitioning to a more product-oriented, product-led, if you will, mindset, and it's a tough transition, especially after being in more program and portfolio management led, lots of little projects that have their own sort of demands, right? But I think that part of the promise of moving to a more product-led organization is that you start to see the connection between projects a lot more clearly. Would you say that is true?
I do. I think that's true. And even in my work today in leading a product team, we have projects.
Yeah.
It's just that, projects are a delivery method. And sometimes using a project to deliver makes a ton of sense. But I think that you could still apply that product mindset of knowing what's the value that we're delivering? What does success look like? What is the outcome? Are we very clear about that and about how we're going to measure that? And then, sure, you can use a project to deliver that if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, the method isn't as important as that people are aligned, they understand what the end goals are, the outcomes are that they're shooting for, and that they understand the mindset to get there, right? So the delivery mechanism is not as important.
We do get caught up in that, though, don't we?
We sure do.
Yeah, I find that we really do, and I don't think it's the most important thing. It's important to do it well, but it's not the most important thing to decide.
Yeah. I've met lots of project and portfolio managers that are amazingly talented and incredibly collaborative and more agile than many agile coaches that I work with that are more concerned with the semantics or the words or the ceremonies and things like that, which aren't all that important in my view. It's more about the people and how aligned are they in terms of the understanding of the mission, vision, purpose of this work that they're doing and the problems that it hopefully solves, right? And having a mechanism to iteratively look at the data that's coming back from hopefully releases that are out there to see, is it actually solving the problems that we are set out to solve, whether through a project method or an agile iterative method or some combination of the two. It doesn't really matter.
Yes. I think that's a really important point, is checking along the way, regardless of, how you're delivering something, because everyone has heard, and many of us have experienced work where you set off to do a project and you're not measuring along the way. And when you get to the end, you realize that the value that you thought was going to be there isn't. And you don't want to learn that at the end. You need to learn that while you can still pivot.
Absolutely. 100% agree. That's one of the things about Agile, and you probably know this. I don't know that the creator of the waterfall method, I forget his name, Winston Royce, I believe.
I do not know.
Yeah, I think he wrote the paper back in the 50s about the waterfall method. And the second to last page, he said that in his paper, he said that if you don't incorporate iteration in this waterfall process and continuously go back and check to make sure that what you did is actually what you want, your project is doomed to fail. I think people didn't read that.
Oh, that's funny.
So anyway, I'm fascinated by your early career in cancer research, right? Working for a nonprofit, I think, gives you a sense of purpose, right? Because purpose is very crisp, very clear. People that go work in an organization like my wife, she works at a homeless shelter, and so the purpose is very clear. The problem to solve is homelessness and how to provide people that are suffering from homelessness a way to get back into a home and get a job and all of those things. In corporate environments focused on profit, purpose can be hard to find. So how do you help teams in large organizations connect with the people that they're supposed to be building these products for in a way that is tangible to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's important to start by knowing your own purpose. And the reason I say that is I'm very customer focused, but the reason that I'm customer focused, I think, does tie back to those nonprofit roots. My purpose then and my purpose now is helping people, and helping people comes to life in many, many different ways. But that is very real for me. And so it makes it authentic when I am tying back the work that I'm doing, or the work that my teams are doing, to customers. And defining customers, by the way, very broadly, customers being anyone who's using what you're building. So I think that's the first thing, but tying back to your customers, however you're defining that, I do think is critical when it comes to purpose. Many of us work in very big companies where there are technology teams who just don't have interactions with customers as part of their natural day to day. But if you think about, like, for example, there used to be a television show where, I can't remember the name of it, but where CEOs would, sort of put on some sort of a disguise and then get up near their front line and they would see what was happening. And they would see both what their customers were experiencing, what their employees were experiencing, which, by the way, also customers. And that made it very real. And so I think that if to connect purpose to teams who are building solutions that serve people, you have to bring that people element. And that means either, get them out of the office if that's possible for you and bring them to where the customers are, or bring the customer stories back, or videos of customers talking about using your product. But anything that can personalize the work, I think. Now, that's not the only type of purpose. There's lots of different purposes. There was a time when I was working in almost like a chief of staff role, and I did a lot of offsite work where I was setting up offsites, and I was able to go to different hotels and figure out which one was going to be the right one for whatever environment I was trying to create. And the company was working to save money, right? And brought in a new program where we had to go through a team that would then source, and had certain hotels they worked with. And for me, it really constrained what I was able to do. But when I found out how much money it was going to save the company, I was okay with it. Because there was a greater good, which is a purpose. So I think anything that you can do to tie for your teams, what's the why? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose? It just helps, especially when things get hard.
That's really the key. I think a lot of people that are the doers, the people that are building the products, right, that are maybe 5, 6, 7 levels removed from the customer, it's finding a way to connect them to that customer, whoever that customer user is, right, in some way, shape, or form, so that they can feel their pains, and they can revel in their gains when these products are actually used, and they're actually serving the purpose, right, intended for. And so they kind of take part in celebrating what they've created. And that, I think, is increasingly harder to do in today's remote-led environment, and especially in companies where some percentage of the teams that are building the products are augmented from they're contract workers that are brought in to build something, and then they're let go, right? So that all that knowledge disappears with them. What is your experience there, and how do you help build more stable, cross-functional, long-lived teams?
That's a great question. I feel like I am fortunate in that when I joined the organization that I'm in now, we already had standing teams, permanent teams that are working on e-commerce. And so we do, of course, like with any team, you're going to have some people coming in and out, and we do absolutely use contractors when we need to, increase kind of our velocity in any certain area. But I am fortunate in that I'm able to have a steady team. That hasn't always been the case, though. And what I would say is that one thing that I see with communications, and can also do myself if I don't remind myself, is we tend to communicate something one time or share something one time, and then just sort of expect that message is going to remain on everyone's mind, and right, and we're going to continue with it. And when you have people coming in and out of a team, that definitely doesn't work, because they might not have even been sitting there on the day that you shared the message. So I think if you're wanting to motivate a team and keep them very customer focused, you just have to keep bringing that message back, and bringing that message back in different ways, bringing back the fresh stories. Taking a minute if you're working with an app to go to the App Store and download some of the reviews and take a look to see if the tone and tenor of those reviews are changing, or whatever you can do to just keep it fresh in mind, and top of mind. I think that's really all you can do when people are coming in and out.
It's a really good point, and I don't think companies do enough of that. It's done. You're right. It's maybe in the beginning. This is the product. These are the people. These are the personas, and this is what they do. But it isn't something that's repeated, especially to your point, when people leave and people replace them and so on. They don't have that. They don't have that sort of inoculation, if you will, or sheep dip into the culture of what they're trying to create, or the products that they're trying to create. And so it does require leadership, right? And communication to bring that clarity as to who the customers are. So yeah, really good point. And something that I need to think about too is, I think as leaders, not to get too frustrated when people don't know what they're building or why. Well, it's probably because you haven't made it clear enough. That's a signal, or it's a smell that you should, okay, maybe I'm not communicating this enough, or in the right manner, in the right way, so people get it, so people can rally behind it. And so to create alignment really takes work.
It does.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the marathon effect when it comes to leadership and communications?
I haven't heard that term.
So the idea is, so if you're in a leader role, before anything new happens, there's sort of a change connection here too. But before anything new happens, deciding to start to look at a new product, or deciding to bring in a new technology system, or reorganize a team, like before any of that happens, you're having conversations typically with a smaller team, right? And that goes on for some time before the moment that you're ready to start talking with the broader team and introducing the vision and the change and where you're going, whether it's, again, new product or working differently or whatever. It's like a marathon. So with marathons, there are big groups of people that are running. They don't all start at the same time. The people who start at the beginning have already run the course. They have already seen where the great water station is, and they know how long it is until the next time they get to take some sort of a pit stop, where the people behind, they haven't gotten there yet. They haven't seen it. As leaders, sometimes because we have been in the conversation longer, we forget that we have to really remind and communicate and just keep reinforcing. And I think, I use change as an example here, but I think that that's just a constant, absolute constant, if you want to keep everyone rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love that metaphor too, the marathon effect, right? So yeah, just because I've run the race doesn't mean that anyone else has, right? They don't have that experience.
Yep.
And so it's worth remembering. I'm curious. I'm going to go back a little bit in your career past. Most technology leaders have come up through IT, traditional IT paths, right? So you start as I don't know, like for me, for instance, I had a really weird upbringing career. I started in restaurants, then went to IT, and I was like a developer for a while, and I went into leadership roles and so on and so forth. But I have to say that my restaurant experience still guides me today, because
I bet.
It's everything sort of confined within those four walls, everything that you would consider part of a business. You've got marketing, you got sales, you got business development, you got product. Your product is the food you serve, everything in those four walls every day, every minute of every day, right? So it really prepped me. You started raising funds for cancer research through telemarketing. That's quite unconventional, probably like my start in restaurants. What did you learn in that role that still shapes how you lead transformations today?
Many things. So I would love to say that this was intentional, but I wasn't one of those college students who knew what she wanted to do. What I did know is that I needed spending money. And so in my senior year, I was working as a student supervisor for this telemarketing organization. And this was a while ago. So we were, picking up the phone and dialing and using note cards in order to record any donations that we got. Like, this is a very manual business at the time. But as I was graduating, there was an opportunity to broaden just the space that we were working in. So we were working just for the state of Michigan. There was an opportunity to work nationally. But you don't raise funds nationally through telemarketing by picking up the phone and using note cards. You do it by having a 60-seat multiple shift telemarketing center that is run by an automated dialing system with scripts on the screen and all that sort of thing. And but I was just graduating, like, imagine. And my manager built the business case for us doing this. And then my first job became helping her open this center and helping manage it. And it was kind of a startup, sort of an atmosphere where it was, I'll do this, you could do that sort of a thing. And even though all of the technology experience that I had was word processing and writing my papers for school, I became the person who was going to administer the automated dialing system. So that was, I guess, the first lesson, because there really are at least two here. But the first lesson was, even if you don't know how to do something, you can lean in, you can learn, you can do it, and you might possibly learn something, or it might, shift your career in a way that you never expected. I never thought that I would work in technology for my entire career. But this is why it happened, because I said yes to running this automated dialing system. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, what we had when we were raising money for cancer via telemarketing is a very clear mission and a very clear purpose. Right. It wasn't about, building this new center that used technology that was cool. It was about, how can we be as effective as possible at raising money for cancer research? And the technology just happened to enable that. And so, I think it's very easy to get caught in technology for technology's sake. But you absolutely have to ground yourself and remember that there is something that you're trying to drive, some sort of outcome. And the technology is an enabler of that. So that was the second lesson.
That's fantastic. I love the way you put that. Speaking of technology, you've observed in our last conversation that it often runs ahead of people's ability to consume change, right? AI is a great example of that. And you also mentioned that we don't really do hands-on training anymore, at least not the way we used to. We just expect people to figure things out on their own because, hey, systems built today, they're more intuitive. Just go play with it and figure it out. And let me know if you have questions. Is that working? What are we losing by not spending more time with people and technology change?
I think that we're leaving a great deal on the table. So before I was doing project management, getting into PMOs, my roots were really change management. As far as what I did after I worked at the telemarketing center, I started to do training where I was delivering training for Microsoft Office, and then I started writing training, and that turned into change management. So that's why I have such a strong point of view on training. But when I was teaching Microsoft Office, think about these are adults, right, who really had very little computer experience. This is the time that we were in. And I would come and show them everything that Microsoft Word could do, all in 8 hours. It was incredibly overwhelming for the people who were in my classes. And so when they came to me and they said, thank you, it was great to learn these things, but I don't know how much of this I'm going to remember and be able to apply. What I would say is half the battle is knowing what this tool can do. If you know what it can do, I showed you how to use the help. You can use the help or use your help desk and figure out how to actually do it. And then I started to say that right at the beginning of the class, because I realized it would be a little bit more useful if they were coming in with that mindset that, like, listen for the capabilities. Don't worry too much about the step-by-step today. Just know the capabilities of this tool. Mm-hmm. So it's completely relevant today. If you kind of fast forward into where we are, think about, so my dad wasn't very handy. This isn't about my dad, but I never got to watch anybody replace a garbage disposal. But I did it a few weeks ago myself, because I was able to go out to YouTube and get a video and just watch someone do it, right? At work, if you know what the capabilities are of the technology tools that you have on your desktop, you can go into Copilot and get help. You don't even have to ask anyone. It's all elevated now. But I think what we're missing and what training gives you is knowing what the capabilities are of the tools. And I think about Microsoft, and Microsoft is rolling out, kind of new spins on what they do with Teams and other tools all the time. And I see that, there are technology enablement teams that will publish articles and that sort of thing about the new capabilities. But I just think we miss that. We're busy, we're not reading this. But if you get sent to training, you're going to learn what the capabilities are, and then you can use and teach yourself and learn and really extract all the value out of the tools. So I think assuming that everything is intuitive and that we're going to get the value by just letting people have at it by themselves is very wasteful. And like I said, leaving a lot of value on the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we are living in an age where you can learn just about anything.
Agree.
With the tools that we have, right? If you want to learn about how to install a disposal, you can, because there's a video out there. There's probably hundreds of thousands of videos that show you how to do that. Or if you want to learn about AI and how to create agents, there's thousands of videos on that, or thousands of videos on something, even more sort of things that you need a college education to understand, like quantum mechanics or whatever. There's tons of material out there, and of course there's Copilot and Claude and ChatGPT and all these other things. But the key is, to your point, it's teaching people how to learn, not teaching people what to do, but teaching them how to learn. Especially in the new world today, the knowledge and the learning opportunities are so vast, it can be so overwhelming. And so some simple little things to teach people how to learn can be really helpful.
Yeah. And giving people that spark, that reason to go and spend their time, which is limited for everyone.
Yeah.
Going out and learning themselves with all of these resources that I agree with you are available. You have to give people a reason to spend their time that way. Yeah.
I want to end with a question, and maybe a few, fun questions towards the end, just a couple more. So this one, your LinkedIn colleagues describe you as someone who simplifies the complex. In our world today, we are a framework for everything, right? We're drowning in them. How do you cut through the noise and help people see what actually matters?
My answer is almost too simple. I feel like you're looking for something really big that I don't have. But I think, when it comes to simplifying, for me, it's about using simple terms. It's about, giving people something that they can grasp onto. The thing about that, though, is in order to simplify something that's complex, you do have to take time. Like you have to think about, what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? And sometimes you have to practice what you're going to say. So I think that, I know that I do invest time in that. But the second thing, in sort of my personal trick, I certainly didn't come up with this, is use analogies. So especially if you're working in technology, use analogies. I have found that you can explain almost anything in technology by using a house analogy. And I do it enough that I do wonder if the people around me get annoyed, but I see the light bulbs go off, when I explain that, for example, One of the reasons why I recently asked a team to go and just do a look at risk and where they might have risk and how we are working every day. I used a house analogy. I said, you could buy a house that was rehabbed that looked absolutely beautiful, but then all of a sudden you have a pipe burst, and then you're going to start wondering, well, what else is it that I can't see in this house? Maybe I better go take a look and see, is the wiring okay? So house analogy for looking at technology operations, and are we operating, with the highest level of quality that we possibly can? It works every time. I'm telling you. Every time.
I love that. I'm going to use it. What would you say is the biggest misconception companies have when they try to shift from project-based thinking to product-based thinking or operating models?
I think that the biggest misconception is that product operating models are just another way for technology teams to do their work. So here's what I mean by this. A good product, a company that is truly working with a product mindset is not thinking that this is just a technology thing. They are thinking that this is a company thing, because in order to build a good product, you need to work across multiple groups within your company. You need to be close to the customer. You need to be driving towards outcomes that are company outcomes. And so it doesn't happen just within the technology team. It's not just how tech works. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions. And, my company is good at it, I think. But I have seen some companies who have put that line in between, and then it really just doesn't get you the outcomes you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. Best career advice you ever ignored?
That's a great question. I don't tend to ignore advice.
Okay.
But yeah, I really don't. I would say that who I am today, the things that I do today they're completely built off of what I've learned from others. And I'm always watching for models, whether, it's a model on how someone's leading or a great approach to solve a problem. I'm always looking for those models. I honestly can't think of specific advice that I've ignored. I do really listen and take it all in.
Yeah, I suppose, I know that there's probably moments in my career where I have ignored advice that I wonder sometimes going back, what if I'd done that? But
okay. So this wasn't advice, but I ignored an opportunity, which is maybe advice, but a little bit masked.
Yeah.
So when I was earlier in my career, my manager needed someone to help him with all things finance, like budget and all of that. And I just said, please do not give me that. I'm not good with numbers. I don't want to do finance. Please just give it to someone else. And no one gets away from that. You never get away from that. So I missed an opportunity to learn in a very low pressure way about, how we were financing the business. And so I would say that in giving me the opportunity to take the assignment, his advice was learn this, and I ignored that.
Yeah. I have similar stories like that, eventually caught up to me, right? I just would have been ahead had I done what was suggested years before.
That's right.
All right. AI, we have to get to the AI question. Overhyped or underhyped right now?
So when you and I first talked, I said overhyped. It's moving so fast that now I'm in right level of hype. I've changed my mind. I think, however, first of all, in just seeing the pace in which, things that you can do with it are coming online and making themselves available and making themselves available to everyone. It's just very democratized. I think that's amazing. And then the other thing that's changed my mind is I've seen companies, when they're talking about AI and AI capabilities, being smart about it. saying, we need to make sure that we have the right data foundation. We need to make sure that, we're not automating broken processes. We need to make sure that we're somewhat surgical in where we're testing to make sure that these investments are going to deliver value and we're not going to try to just apply AI to everything. Yeah. So between seeing the pace at which it's developing and the pragmatic approach that many companies are taking, I feel like it's getting the right level of hype.
Yeah, that's great. I wrote an article recently on AI and transformations, and it echoes some similar themes. I'd love your feedback. I'll send you a link to it if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, one last fun question. If you can go back to your nonprofit self, your nonprofit days, and give yourself one bit of advice, what would it be?
I don't know that it's about my nonprofit self as much as just starting my career self. Mm-hmm. I would tell myself to be much more deliberate about career planning and development than I was. So, I shared with you earlier that part of the reason why I work in product today is because I figured out, over 5 years ago that was what it was going to take. Mm-hmm. Had I figured that out some time ago, I think that I would have had even more diverse experiences across my career because I would have been intentionally looking to do lateral moves that would develop me. And I would be, having a much stronger network when I was earlier in my career. I think that kids today, so I have a college student, so I'm allowed to say kids today. But I think that, when I look at my daughter, she is set up much more so than I was in order to do these things. But, that would be my advice is own your career. Don't look to anyone else to do it and spend the time because it absolutely does pay off.
Yeah. If there's one thing that really resonated for me, there's many things that did, but one that really stood out for me in this talk was your intentionality. And whether it, maybe it happened 5 years ago, maybe it was before that, but just the level with which you are intentional about your career. I think that really is something that I'm going to have to think about more about me, right? And hopefully others that are watching the show will probably think about that as well for their careers and how have they gotten to where they are, and is that where they want to go, and how intentional are they in planning for their future? No matter what stage of the career career they're in. Like both my sons, they're older than your daughter, but I don't know that they're doing that, and I'm going to encourage them to watch this show.
It's great, and if they ever want to talk about career, I'm always happy to do it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation. I always enjoy talking with you, so thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on the show, and hope you enjoy this episode. There'll be some links in the show notes on how to get a hold of Patricia. By the way, do you go by Patricia or?
I do.
Okay, Patricia, and some of the links that we mentioned in the show as well. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.